we need to talk about you. Yes, you. By now you've watched so many videos on how to study techniques, tips and tricks videos, but when you go to try and implement any of these tips, it just feels like it doesn't work for you. That's because maybe you're trying to go down a path that's simply not suited for you. This is because there are many types of learners. It makes sense to choose a method and feel that's best suited to you, right? And so here's how to find out which of the 3 learner types you are, and study tips you can do for each one. And maybe you're the 4th kind, the rarest kind, the mix of them all, just like me. So if that's the case, stick around until the end for the multimodal learner. The first type of learner is auditorial, and maybe this is you. Do you like listening to when a teacher explains concepts to you? Can you remember lyrics to your favorite songs easily? Do you often find yourself asking a teacher to re-say what they've just said? If you said yes to these questions, you might be an auditorial learner. And so for you, the thing you have to do is explain things to people, because you learn best by hearing things. So by taking that in and regurgitating it and telling that to other people is the best way for you to learn. Convert illustrations and diagrams to verbal descriptions, because diagrams and flowcharts are probably confusing to you. And so for example, for this velocity time graph, instead of trying to memorize how the graph works visually, explain each step. Initially the gradient is high and then it drops down until it's 0 again. Just by having the verbal description, it makes it so that's easier for you to understand, because you're just not simply the visual types of learner. Read stuff out loud also, because as we know, you're auditorial. So when you read notes or reading a textbook page, although it might be cringe, just in your room, read it out loud, because this is the best way you absorb information. And you can go a step further with this. You can also record yourself explaining concepts if you can't say it to other people, and then play it back. You can see gaps and where you're stuttering, and then these are points that you need to work on and you can see that you lack knowledge in. It's maybe cringe at first, but this helps because when you listen to yourself saying it, it's like you're having your own teacher explaining it to you, yet you can see where the gaps are or where you're shaky at things. And the second type of learner you could be is visual learner. And if this is you, you guessed it, you learn best with visual things. You like it when there's a diagram or an animation. You like charts and graphs. You prefer watching videos to learn something rather than just reading a boring old textbook. When you try and read something, you find it boring and you find yourself zoning out. But when you see a video of someone going through in detail and adding notations and diagrams, you learn best. And so for you, obviously you have to use your eyes, and the ways you can do this are numerous. The things that I like to do is watch the whiteboard style walkthrough videos. These are the teacher style videos on YouTube that go through on a white piece of paper making drawings and annotations with arrows and that go through the whole topic. The best thing about this is that they link from step A to B and cover everything, but they make it so that there's a connection that we can see visually, making things easy to see are your friends. So when you take notes from a lecture or a textbook, the thing you can use is something called a box method. So how you do it is you write your title of your lecture or textbook chapter you're going to be studying, and then you write notes on a subtopic and concept, but then you divide each point into a box point for each subtopic and concept. And this is great because you can quickly make notes and it's all linked by boxes, so when you come to revise it, you can follow these boxes like a little trail and you'll be finding yourself relearning things very quickly. And because lengthy things are not your friend, this box style summary makes it so that it's easy to see and easy to learn. Another tip I like to use is use symbols and images that work for you. When I make notes, I like sometimes linking it to something in my head. For example, a great example of this is when I used to learn Japanese. I would visually connect hiragana to visual things such as this. And this is great because it forms a visual connection in your mind. And when you do this, it's proven that the visual connections that are made in your brain will be long lasting. And furthermore, when you make notes, you can use special symbols such as exclamation mark, question marks and stars to make it so that you know those are the things you need to keep on looking at. And the third type of learner is this, practical learners. Do you learn best when your teacher does a practical or demonstration? Do you hate it when teachers keep talking about the theory of something and you just want to go and do it? Then you're a practical learner. These people learn best by doing the things. And although this is broadly true for everyone, especially these people, they can't understand a topic or are able to do something unless they try it for themselves. These people can't visualize a chemistry experiment until they do it themselves. These people can't memorize a rock from a textbook page unless they go and actually see this. So for example, if it's French you want to learn for, instead of reading textbook chapters, these people work best by going and speaking French to people. And you might be saying, I don't have a French person I can speak to, but I have a Discord community where you can find people who are studying the same courses as you or things you want to learn that would be happy to help you improve your French speaking. Just as an example, the subjects that people take in there are innumerable. For these types of people, practice papers are your friend because you're actively doing questions. Do them and write down bits you don't know, and then you end up doing the things you didn't know again. And just by this process of doing it again and again, you know you're a practical learner because by doing the questions, by doing the things, you learn best. And a side tip to this is that when you're trying to learn a concept, for example, what this chemistry experiment does, sometimes you don't have access to be able to actually do the experiment. But what you can do is you can go onto YouTube and you can find someone doing the experiment. And although it's not the same, by being practical and being able to see that thing being done in front of you, that's sometimes all you need. These types of people, if this is you, your best friend is seeing it done. You typically don't like learning about it, you prefer doing it. So just by getting a brief overview of how to do it and then jumping straight into the deep end and doing it is the best thing for you. So don't bother reading textbook pages after page, and instead, once you get the gist of it, go and practice it in action. And maybe up to this point you were thinking, none of this is actually me. There are some parts that I agree with, but this single type of learner isn't something that's me. And if this is you, you're just like me. I'm a multimodal learner. And yes, since you're a mix of all of these, it can seem overwhelming and a bad thing. You have to mix all study types and you don't even know where to start. But actually, thinking of it as a good thing is even better because it gives you the potential to learn in all ways. It gives you more potential. And a lot of people fall into this group. For example, say that you're 20% visual learner, 30% auditory, and 50% practical, just as an example. So what you have to do if you're in this class is you have to utilize all of your senses and just try everything. And typically, using all your senses is a good thing for everyone, but especially for multimodal learners, because for you, sticking to one thing and only doing that just doesn't work. You find it easiest to study when you change things up, by going to a cafe, going outside, by rotating your desk. So do these often. Although it can seem tedious, just by going to a cafe or studying in another room or studying with a different color pen, it's all that's needed to switch your brain back on. And another tip for this is to just keep changing things up. These types of people thrive by mixing all the things said in this video for what works for you. So play around with all of these things and come back to this video when you're stuck and find that it's becoming boring, and try something new if one thing you're doing isn't working. So that's all the types of learners. You definitely fall into one of these, so find out which one it is and implement the tips in this video, because there's no point in doing tips that aren't suited to you, right? So now you know what you need to do. Revisit this video if you're unsure which one you're in again, because throughout life you don't always tend to stick to one of these, and especially if you're a multimodal learner, just know that you're not alone. But although it can seem to be tough to focus easily like all these other people, just know that if you find the right combination and the right things that work for you, you have so much potential. Whichever one of these four you are, I believe in you.